I'm recording now. Yay. Cool. So I probably... Okay, no one cares about you, ads. Yeah, that's so rude of me to not give a single flying crap about ads. Live. Yay. Yay. Oh, we got 7 views. Way cool. You don't need to. Alright. So it looks like I'm live. And I'm ready to go. Oh, your mic is RGB. Well, of course it's RGB. Wow. That's over the top. How's the sound quality? Are you running through desktop speakers or headphones? Okay, with the mic angled in that direction, I would recommend you turn the microphone towards you. Right now it's facing to the side. But you can also rotate it in the arm itself. Right? You've got the clamp thing. You can rotate it here. Well, it's not the way it sounds, but it can produce an echo. So that, is it currently in cardioid, figure 8, omni, or stereo? Which one is it configured in? Do you know what any of that means? Okay, yeah, you want it in cardioid. So if you have it facing that direction, and you have desktop speakers, it's, especially if it's omni or figure 8 or something like that, it's likely to start feeding back, and that's when we start hearing echoes and stuff. But if you have headphones, that won't happen, because there's no possibility of that happening. Well, it sucks to be you. We'll let you know if if you start what's it called? Feeding back and have start echoes. What's this S ... Who is that? Someone's in streamer mode currently. No, that's Flavid. Your username is S ... I think it's Tristan. No, you don't need to. It's fine. It's just he's in streamer mode, which is interesting. All right. We're gonna wait a couple more minutes. As this starts. For some reason, I had in my head this wasn't a web dev class, and this was a scouting meeting. So I was not prepared. I am sorry. So I'm ready for a web dev. I'm sorry, a scouting meeting right now. I'm not ready for working on that. Did you really send Pog, Nate? Really? Really? Can I block you from the live stream? Oh, my Saxon miscellaneous drawer is sitting in the shot. That's awesome. Alright. So, before we get started on content, what have you all worked on? This is review kind of stuff. Right. What's the one? There we go. Alright. Oops. REL? Oh, rel, yeah. Yeah. So that means rel. Oh God, what does that mean? It's been a minute. But that just means, hey, this is a CSS file, or this is a like this is an icon, this is a whatever. Except for no, icons are links. So you're talking about if I go to my screen, I zoom in a little bit. So if we go to this animal project, you're talking about this. If I go to Bootstrap version of it, you have to have this href and then the link thing. Wherever they put it, there it is. You have the script version, and then I think they forgot the CSS. And I'll just let GitHub Copilot do it. There we go. I love GitHub Copilot, except for that's 4.5.2, so I'm gonna actually. I think they're at 5.1. That's, I think, the wrong version. Okay, so there's that. And then if I just go to, not the download, introduction, here, copy. So you're talking about this rel style sheet, this thing. Yeah. That just means, hey, this is a CSS file. That's all that means. Oh my god, cat, I love you, but you're annoying. Okay. So, is there anything specific that you wanted to show? That you worked with worked on JavaScript? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I really wanted you to just play around from the stuff that we worked on last week. My cat is just driving me up the wall. So from the Hello World, just running a Hello World project, all the way into where did we end? We ended at functions. Is that correct, Nate? Okay. Okay, hold on a second. I'm gonna move my cat. My entire family's in Oregon currently, so my cat gets lonely very quickly, which I can relate. So that's what's going on. So how are we all doing in terms of JavaScript and understanding the lets versus vars, understanding scopes, understanding switch case, if statements, type coercion, all that stuff that we worked on last week? Oh, Nate, really? Alt account? Yeah, you've done comp sci. So I'm more curious about those who weren't here. So Tristan and I don't actually know your name. I'm sorry. I know your Minecraft name because we were on Minecraft at one point. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. So Tristan, how do you feel about the oh, I guess Kip just left. How do you feel about everything between 5.0 and 5.2.6? Okay, do you need any review on that? Yeah, that's kind of how it's set up. That's how we tried to set it up. What about you, cuz? I'm sorry, I don't know your name. I'm so sorry. What's your name again? That's right. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. How do you feel about 5.0 through 5.0.6 or 5.2.6? Okay. So, I think what we should do is, Nate, you start going through intervals and timeouts and getting through into classes, and I'm gonna work in another channel separately on with anyone who needs a review on 5.0 through 5.0.6, and so we can get everyone up to speed. And so if in the future you need him as a class, we will send out, hey, this is the section that we have worked on. And if you are struggling with something, you can reach out to us. And I would like for you to at least work your way through it by yourself. And if you are struggling with something, well, I'm redundant, reach out to us. So if do you think that would be good, Brandon? Okay, cool. So Nate, you want to take charge and work. I think everyone else. Actually, Tristan, how are you? You've done some programming before, correct? So okay, you're probably. Have you done like computer science, like comp sci as a class? Yep. Dude, I am 23. I don't know grades and their respective classes, okay? I'm so sorry. It's been a long time since I've been in high school. I just graduated Boise State. So anyway, if you feel comfortable working with Nate on that, great. If you start to feel as if you're behind, come to the other breakout session, which I guess this will be kind of difficult because not all of it will be recorded. So, actually, now that I think about it, we should go backwards. Nate, you should work with Brandon in a separate thing because I'm recording, and then we're not recording a bunch of review stuff. Yeah, it'll just be easier with that, and when you come back, we can just set you back up with going through all the other stuff. Alrighty. Toodles. Yeah, sorry about that. That was partially my mistake. I didn't think about recording until literally just now. So, let's go through this. How do you all feel about functions? Pretty simple. There are multiple ways of creating functions, and a couple of them are kind of trash. Don't do this, please. I love it, but don't do it. There's actually one other one that we didn't really talk about. Actually, no, that's specific to JavaScript. We'll get into that later. All right. So if we go to 5.2.7, intervals and timeouts, basically, intervals are a way to basically escape the what's called the event loop in a way. I mean, it doesn't fully escape it, but you have in JavaScript you have an event loop, and every single synchronous thing is just thrown into the event loop until it happens, basically, right? It's like a stack kind of. So the set interval is basically a while loop that'll happen after so many milliseconds. So set interval, I run log thingy, it'll log thingy every 1000 milliseconds, or every second. And then you have set timeout, which will just run a function after so many milliseconds. That's all it says. And so evidently spam, this will run spam on your computer for every 300 milliseconds, so once every, well, almost 3 times a second, a little bit faster than that. So basically, it's just a way to have repetition separated out by time. And in terms of like if you're used to Python, Python gives you the time like package, and then you or is it util package, and you import time from what I don't remember exactly how it works. It's been a minute, but you import like sleep, and you can actually do a similar thing. So we actually may be doing this. Kind of. So sleep, we haven't really done asynchronous, but you can understand, you'll understand this more later. Sleep would be this. So const sleep equals ms, and I'll just let GitHub Copilot do it. Returns a promise and resolves it after so many milliseconds. And you'll understand promises in async and await later when we get into a little bit further into the more advanced parts of JavaScript. But this is how you would write the sleep function. You would use set timeout, but the problem is it now turns into an asynchronous function, whereas sleep in Python is synchronous, so it's a little bit different. All right. Do you feel as if you want to do a project on the timeouts? So basically, I think what it is, yeah, we're building a spam bot that sends a message every 5 seconds. Do you want to do that? Or do you feel comfortable? Right. So if I go here, let's see if I can run it. Well, I probably can. I'm not. Nate probably set it up pretty well. So cd lessons, and then it's 5.2, and then 7, and then I'm gonna node 1. Yay. So this is actually, I actually really like this because this showcases very well. Okay, so it ran spam a bunch of times, and then it did thingy 2, and then it did thingy 2 3 more times. After this did it a couple more times, and then it just started doing thingy. So even though log thingy was once per second, and thingy 2, that, and thingy 3, wait, what is spam? Spam was every... Oh, there's no... Yeah, so he didn't put in a time here, which means the time is 0. So that means it would go as fast as it possibly can. However, console.log is actually a really slow function. And this is actually the weird thing about set interval and set timeout, is it doesn't actually accommodate the amount of time it takes for you to run, or for it to run the function. So it doesn't say, all right, it runs the start of every function every 1,000 milliseconds. It says, I'm going to call the function, wait for it to stop, and then wait 1,000 milliseconds, then call the function again. And so the time it takes for the function to run is actually added on, and so it's not actually 1,000 milliseconds. And so console.log is actually quite slow for an asynchronous function. And so it didn't actually run 200 times, it only ran like 20. Does that make sense? Why that happened? Because console.log takes more than a millisecond to log. It takes more than a millisecond to run. So if you actually wanted to make like a flexible interval, const flexible interval equals, no, not min-max, just ms. It's a very similar thing. You then would const start. What? No. So use date.now, which is a thing. I think we've learned that already. And then we say, we run the function, and then we const end time, set timeout, do that. So now it takes, this will remove, yes, I'm using GitHub Copilot, I'm cheating, but I understand the logic of all of it. So basically, flexible interval, what this does is it waits for the function to end, and I could just do this. And that saves a little bit of CPU cycles, like maybe 1/2 of a CPU cycle. That's a joke for you guys. Anyway, it will basically take the amount of time it takes for the function to run, and then it will subtract that time from the desired milliseconds. And so over time, this will eventually, on average, take from start to start the number of milliseconds requested. And it gets a little bit more complicated because this doesn't actually remember, and it doesn't like accommodate for like significantly like ones like significantly prior. But you can make your own function that does that, but at that point you'd use a different function because you're probably trying to animate something, and if you're going to animate something, you'd use something else, which we can talk about later. We'll get into that once we get into the canvas. So, any questions on set interval and set timeout? Okay. There's also set immediate, which we don't really use, but basically it just runs a function after all the callbacks. Or I don't remember how it works. We don't use it, so I don't remember how it works. But that would be also something to take a look at. But I rarely, if ever, see that happen. One thing that also I've seen to trick the process, like before it ends, to run something in case, can't remember how it works. So set timeout. If you do some function after 0 milliseconds, this triggers outside of the event loop. It may or may not trigger because the process may end before it's run, if that makes sense. And so this is actually, you'll see this occasionally in code, and it has to do with performance. I couldn't really tell you. We barely, if ever, use it, so can't fully tell you. I just have seen it before. All right, the next thing is try catch. This is really simple. It's in basically every coding language. Try catch. The problem is it's different than, oh, Nate, come on, semicolons. It's different than like if then else, or if else, if function. You have in terms of brackets, if statements don't need the brackets, try catch do, and so they do create their own. Well, this does already create their own scope, but you have to have the brackets in order for this to work. Next thing is you don't actually have to have the E in order for it to work, the error. But you have to have try, and you also have to have catch, or else there's also an error. Okay, so you can't just like throw away the error without intentionally saying, I am throwing away the error, if that makes sense, which is different than Rust and Go and various other languages. Alright, I'm going to undo all of that. Any questions on try catch? That's a pretty straightforward concept. Oh yeah, so if there's an basically you'll see exceptions. You know what an exception is? Yeah, that's an error that has happened because of something inside of this scope. Sorry, I didn't mention that. Thank you. So if there is something that goes wrong inside of this scope, it won't kill the process. It'll just run this function instead, or whatever is inside of this scope instead, and then continue on with its day. And so, yeah, it's quite useful for if you have like a bunch of requests. If you have like a server and you have a million different requests, you put them all in try-catch blocks, and so a single request won't destroy the entire server. Or like you put them all in individual try-catch blocks. So, we'll get into that later once we start doing Express, which is here. Anyway, which we haven't built that yet. We need to do that. We're getting close. All right. Next one. Do we need to do a project description? Whatever this is. What is this? Make a function that takes an ABC and solves the quadratic formula for those values. Use a for loop to decide whether plus or minus, or whether the plus or minus is a plus or minus, then just log the result. I don't fully understand this. Do you guys want to do that? Or do you... I don't know what... I didn't actually like go through all of these projects, so I'm kind of doing it with you because I was expecting Nate to be the one running the thing, which is fine, but yeah, kind of my fault. Do you guys want to do this project? You could do it also by yourself at home, but let's see what this takes in. Okay, this is teaching the math. So math is a global object that contains like absolute value, square root, all of that stuff. And so oftentimes people will just import like const math or square root equals math, and so they'll import it right there. Voice crack, but they don't. I don't know. I don't think this is absolutely necessary. I'm kind of confused by this project. Anyway, let's go into classes. So, what is a class? Sure. Yeah. And this is what I really appreciate about Java, is that everything is an object. Absolutely everything is an object. Everything is a class. It's not really, it's not as flexible as JavaScript in that, like, it could be functional programming. It could have a bunch of currying. It could have all sorts of weird things happening. Whereas Java, like, you have strict classes, which can get a little bit confusing when you have functions that don't really require classes, and so you have to make like a throwaway class in order to deal with stuff. But basically, a class is like a blueprint that does whatever you want. So in JavaScript, what would be a class? Give me an example of a class. Sure. Sure. What is inherent to JavaScript that is that has a prototype? And when I say has a prototype, it means that it is created by classes, basically. Arrays. What is an array? When you say type of array, what is that? Freaking GitHub Copilot, stop giving away the answer. What is that? Nope, it's not a class. What is it? It's an object. Type of array is object. So, this is actually, like, basically an array is basically the same thing as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's get rid of that. Okay. That's the same thing as going 0, 0, 1, 1. Oh wait, no, I need those as strings. 0, 0, 1, 1, that kind of thing. Or const obj equals fine, be that way. Oh. There we go. Now I don't have any problems. So it's basically the same thing as doing that. So at the 0 index, it's 0. At the 1 index, it's 1. And basically everything is treated that way. And it also contains getters like length. And so this will, dot length will return 10. It has methods like push and pop, unshift, shift, map, for each, etc. These are all array methods, and so these are all those are all inherent to this to any object. Also, all objects contain have a prototype like .toString. They also contain entries and a couple other things based on. It also depends on like what node version you're using, but basically a class is something that contains data. It's an object that contains data that you can have getters, which are functions that are run that return a single value, and then you have methods that are run, which are functions that you pass in values and they do stuff to them and can return something. So that's kind of the difference between getters and setters. We'll get through that. We already talked about arrays right here. So to make an object, oh my god, my cat. Meow, meow, meow. Anyway, I love my cat so much, but it's so annoying. So to create an object, what we do is we say const obj, or const whatever our object is, and we say key1 is value. We use these curly braces, and we use, if I'm going to zoom in a little bit, Control B, get rid of that. We use, instead of equal signs, use colons and commas instead of equal signs and semicolons. Okay, so, oh my god, my cat. It's going to drive me up the freaking wall. Anyway, what's also cool about objects is you can set properties of an object without actually saying the value. And so because we've already made a variable or a constant with that name, you can just pop that name into right there, and it'll actually it'll be the same thing as key3, or value 3. Those are all the it'll do the same thing. So this is just a less redundant way to type that in. Does that make sense? Thumbs up. Cool. So now, accessing these variables, you say object, and you can use these open braces that look like an array to access key1. This is why when you do an array, const r equals that, you do what? Or const r0, it'll do the same thing. That's like another example of like why arrays are objects. And we're gonna go more into arrays. I forgot that you haven't learned arrays yet. Oh my god, my cat is gonna drive me crazy. Anyway, you can also say object.key1. Yeah, what's up? I am newer to programming. This is my like 3rd year to programming. What is a hash map? Yep, exactly. That's what it is. Yep. So if you've worked in FeatureScript, an object is a map in FeatureScript. Or an object in Python is an object in JavaScript is a dict or a dictionary in an object in JavaScript is a dictionary in Python, that kind of thing. And so yes, it's a hash map. So you have key value pairs. Okay, and so in array you have key value pairs, but the key is always 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, for example. Okay. So object.key1, yada yada. And you can also assign values. Even if your object is a constant, you can assign values, so key4 is value 4. And so that will do the same thing as key4 is value 4. That's all it will do. It'll just apply that. Okay? So, one object you've already used in, you've already used the console object. And so console has actually a couple different methods off of it. So console.log, it also has console.error, console.warn. These are all methods that you have access to inside of the console object. And you can actually view the console object. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Node, console. There we go. I am now viewing the stuff inside of console. So evidently you have dir, time end, all of this stuff. That's kind of cool. However, you really only use log. In the front end, you use warn. So front end meaning like inside of the browser, you use warn, and you can use error. So if I say console.log, hi, or log hi, console.error, hi, basically does the same thing, but in the front end, it will actually create what will look like a throw error thing. So it'll look like that inside of the front end. And it'll have a big red thing, and so it'll be very obvious, oh shoot, I've made a mistake. So basically, Nate has made his own console.log object, and he's done that. And last time we did web dev class, he was basically trying to make a class that spams everything, and so he he basically did that. And so every time you run console2.log, it'll run console.log a million times. Which, that is a very Nate thing to do. Anyway, console2.log. Actually, let's do that and see if this works. So, Control-C. I'm in Tater's dashboard. That's not the terminal that I want. There we are. CD. I want to go into Control-B. // 5.3 classes 1 objects node 1. Yay. Does that make sense? So console.log, console2.log is accessing this log function inside of here, and it is spamming whatever you pass in. Cool? Alrighty. So, I'm going to zoom out again so I can actually see it. Do you want to make a project that create 2-point objects, x, y, and a z? Actually, let's see what this does. Oh, it's this one. This is actually a fun one. Oh, wait, no, it's not the one that I was thinking of. I was thinking about arrays. The array project is actually kind of interesting. Do you want to do this project? Basically, where you create an object and you add math, do math stuff to it. Based on, it's like, these are like vectors, and you use, also, that's actually kind of cool. Okay, yeah, I like this. You want to do it? Except for I'm giving away the answer. You should do it. And a class would be like person. So, I am a person, and so, like, when you say new person, you are giving a new person, and you pass in the string Taylor, you are giving birth to Taylor, and then now I have all of these attributes, and they can change. And methods, which are things that I do. Make sense? Cool. Do this project. This is actually kind of interesting. I'll see what GitHub Copilot comes up with. Because of me? Or because of GitHub Copilot? Which is not true, because GitHub Copilot often produces a bunch of bugs. I don't think that it's 100% true. I think oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, this basically did the exact same thing as Nate. That's funny. Without the comments, because GitHub Copilot doesn't comment. Oh my god. It's annoying. Alright, how are we doing? You have something to present? Showcase? Not yet? No worries. Hey Tristan, if you need any help with anything, you can also reach out to me. Like, you can just ask a question here. That works too. Yeah. That's what we're here for. Wait, what? Oh. Wait, when last week? Was it Tuesday? I wasn't there on Tuesday. I wasn't... I was there on Thursday. I was there on Saturday. Oh, I didn't see. Hmm. Yeah, I think it was Tuesday then. Yeah, I wasn't there. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Once I graduated, I basically had to stop doing stuff with the team because I was traveling for stuff, and yeah, it was kind of sad, but I had to give up. Where are you going? Right, in Caldwell. Where are you studying? Or what are you studying? Right, yeah, I know that one. My friend goes there, so. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm actually tempted to go back and get a degree in engineering. I'm only like 4 weeks out of graduating Boise State, and I'm already tempted to go back. My music composition degree is not helping. I learned a lot, but I don't have a job. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think Mark has a physics and engineering degree. All right. Cedar, how's it going? Tristan, David. So, can I actually see what you're doing? I'm gonna see if we can, optimize some things. This might be easier to optimize. Oh, you're... Oh, hey. Couple things. So you have an error. When you say class point, don't have an equal sign. And you don't need let. You can just do, constructor XYZ. Well, this just gave it all for you. No, you need the scope in the constructor. Are you using Vim? Are you using Vim? Oh, that's fair. Huh. I haven't used Vim. So you can actually add those to the prototype just by adding, just by putting them here. So inside of the point, the whole point class, you can just say add point. Oh, now we're looking at a phone. Oh. No worries. Basically, from line 18 to 24, you can just copy the add, get rid of the equal sign, copy the add, make sure point is capitalized, and paste it inside of the class scope. Get rid of point.prototype, or you tab it first. Yeah, there you go. And you can get rid of the equal sign. Actually, you don't have to, but yeah. Add and then get rid of the arrow function as well. That's a weird looking arrow function. Make sure you capitalize point. New point. Yeah. There you go. Yep. And I would recommend you don't put a space from add to multiply. You don't. There are very few. I don't see many people doing that. No. From add. Sorry, not add to multiply. Add to point 1 to point 2. Between, yeah, just delete that space there. And you can put a space there. It doesn't actually do anything, but it's just a syntax thing that I don't see many people. So now that you have those, you can say subtract, and all you do is you say this dot add, but you multiply it by -1. And then what would you do for divide? Exactly. You also need to pass in x, y, and z for the when you initialize a point. You can't just initialize it because you have otherwise. Well, actually, you with what you're doing, it actually won't throw an error. But if you're doing that in TypeScript, it won't. It will. So what you're doing is actually going to be fine for JavaScript's sake. David, you're muted. I mean, you're unmuted. So actually what you're doing, you're just creating the prototype and then returning it. That's actually fine, but that's actually pretty readable. But what I would recommend doing is, if once you start getting into TypeScript, which we will, if you look at my screen, do this. I'm going to zoom in. So you can make multi-line parentheses and just say this.x. Am I? Whoops. There we go. Yes, you can. You don't have to do what I'm saying, but it requires one fewer lines and it takes a little bit less. It's a little bit more condensed with what you're doing. I like that you're doing a class though. It's not minus num though, right? Well, you can, but when you multiply, why are you multiplying by negative num? Right, there you go. I need to return the values. And you also need to say ret.add or point.add. Otherwise, yeah. There you go. Exactly. That's what's happening. You can also just return that. And now you don't even need to say ret.that. You can just say point.add. You can say, yeah. There you go. There you go. Yeah. Or I could do num star 1 or -1 as well. But that both work. Absolutely. But now if you have num is 0, that'll throw an exception, right? If you want, or you could try to catch it every time you run divide. But you actually want, in this instance, I would recommend you should throw an error whenever when you run divide by 0, because it makes sense. Yeah, because that means you have coded poorly. I think you're done. I think that's it. Sure. So that's one thing when you're writing languages, try to think of the things that will be causing errors. Think of those, that's why they call them exceptions. Like this will work, except when it doesn't. Wait, you're hold on. I mean, yeah, now you're just kind of defeating the point of the try catch, though, because you're still throwing an error. Because when you run divide by 0, you're not going to be actually creating a, it'll return a divide by 0 error. I think. Node. Oh no, it doesn't throw an error. It'll just make infinity. So now you can say if num equals 0, throw an error. Now that actually won't do anything. Your try catch will never reach throw error unless it's like a string or something like that. So now only if the number is equal to 0 will it multiply. Cedar? Do you see what you're doing? You now will only divide by 0 if the number is 0. I mean, you will only run that function if it's 0. Nope. Yeah, so that's not what the not equal to mean. So not equal to will be basically what we want if num not equal 0. Whoops, that's minus minus. Not equal 0. That's what you want. But it looks like you're doing that. That's what I see. That's weird. Could you please? Because it's really hard for me to identify that stuff. Alright. We'll get rid of that too. Kip, I think we went over like if conditions inside of lesson 5.2.1, and so we can see like what the various not equal. We haven't done the equal version of it yet, but we can. I can refer you to the lesson 5.2.1, and that will give you the answer. Oh, if I were British, I'd say bang equal, or just bang equal. That's what exclamation point is, but I don't want to say exclamation point over and over again. Not making fun of British people, but I kind of am. Anyway, any questions about that? David and Tristan, you both got that? Can I see what you're doing? It's important to take the time on this because I want you all to fully understand this stuff. All right, class point. Yeah. I actually like how you're calling constructor a function, because it is a function. So that is important to think about it that way. Yes. So you're passing in x, y, z, and so that constructor will be initialized when you say new point and you pass in x, y, z. We actually haven't gotten into classes. Cedar skipped a couple steps. So all we were really looking for was you doing the object thingy. Yeah, Cedar went above and beyond. You can actually add, you can't add, you wouldn't call them methods, but you would call them objects. Actually, would they be, not objects, sorry, you'd call them functions. Because you could absolutely no, you're fine. So I'm gonna go to my screen, and so you could say like add point, and so now you do stuff with the point, right? And it uses this .x, which I don't think actually works. You have to do .1.x. There are a couple weird problems that I've seen with this .x when you're inside of an object instead of a class, but this would technically work. The only thing is you don't actually have the prototype. Your prototype, I mean, your prototype is basically the object prototype, and not a new prototype, which is the point, which you'd be creating by generating the class, which we will get into. Like, that's what this is for. So like class person, log color. Oh, favorite color. Okay. Nate, you're getting a little okay. Anyway, does that make sense? All right. So I wouldn't make classes for now because we haven't really done them yet. We're getting into that through objects. So this project, you take in a point, and you add them together, take in a point, and then a number, you multiply the number, subtract, blah, 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 and you initialize your points not as classes, but as objects, which I guess is also still a class, but whatever. And you just do purely functional programming. That's what Nate was looking for, because that's technically what we've learned up until this point. Does that make sense? Yeah, Cedar, let's all just blame Cedar. It's his fault. Yeah, well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. But I'm glad we actually went through that, because that is a great introduction into classes, and why we would use them, because new point is a lot easier to understand than const point 1 is this, and then you have to do const point 2, and then functional program. Like, it's easier to think, okay, I'm going to add this point and this point, and it returns a point. And then when you do stuff like vectors and lines and circles, and you get into shapes and stuff like that, it's actually very, very easy. What's your name? David. You know I am working on, like, that... God, my cat. Anyway, you know I'm working on the serpentine belt calculator thing, right? So I basically wrote all of that in TypeScript, creating my own types with vectors and points and circles as pulleys, and having all of that stuff using classes, because it's a lot easier to understand than purely functional programming. And so I can say, well, whatever, I can go through that code later, but that's where classes really, like, help you a lot. And that's where TypeScript is amazing, because it makes its own type. It doesn't actually, like, consider, oh, everything is an object. It actually, like, restricts you, similar to Java. Oh, you're only allowed to pass in something, otherwise the compiler will yell at you. So, and it will literally yell at you. It'll like turn on your speakers and actually, like, scream at your face. Yeah. Make sense? Cool. Alrighty. Are we good to move on? Okay. Tristan, you're good? Cool. So, what is an array, and what is an array? We already kind of talked about it. Well, we've already established that an array is an object. It could be a collection of objects. It could be a collection of numbers, but doesn't have the prototype of object, right? So, I'm gonna disagree with you there. It is an object, but it doesn't have to be a collection of objects. I mean, you just described it. What makes an array unique from an object? Why do we use arrays instead of just objects? So yeah, they basically create their own strings. I mean, create their own keys. So the keys are their index starting at 0, because any other language that starts at 1 is garbage. Anyway, and if you watch there's a video called "The Worst Programming Language in the World." They they basically take a whole hour and a half to create the worst programming language in the world that takes all the worst aspects of every other programming language and combine it all into one. And so their array indexing starts at -1 and goes down. So it's -1, -2, -3. Anyway, it's amazing. That's all beside the point. Yeah, so basically you start at 0 and it all is indexed off of there. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what's awesome about arrays is you get access to, you can kind of treat it like a stack. Think of it like a stack. And so you probably have heard of Philo. So first in, last out stacks, or first in, first out stacks, that kind of, those kinds of stacks. You can kind of actually think about it that way. And so you have access to push, pop, shift, and unshift. So what does push do? Think about it as a grid. Push does what? Yeah, so I'm going to go to MS Paint, because this is important. We're going to make a grid, okay? So we're going to say add and subtract. Whoops, sorry. This one add, and then subtract, and then this is start and end. Okay, so you're saying push is here. Whoops. This is great, by the way. And is it mirrored for you guys? It's mirrored on my screen. Cool, awesome. Okay, so adding to the end is push. So that's that method. Okay? What's the next method? Sorry, let's do shift. What does shift do? No, shift doesn't remove any values. So no, yeah, it moves all the values over, but it doesn't insert something. So shift removes the first value and moves everything else up one value. So push will just add something to the end. Shift will remove the first value, or the 0 index, and have the second index, so 1, and everything after start at 0. So if you have a list of people, a list of strings, and they're like people's names, and it goes like Cedar, David, Taylor, Jorge, Kip, and Tristan. That's the order that I see on my screen. And I say shift something, it'll remove Cedar, and we'll start with David. Make sense? Cool. What subtracts from the end? What does that one do? What is that one called? Pop. Also called soda. So anyway, so the David, you're like, what? Anyway, so yeah, pop takes one thing from the end and it doesn't shift anything back or forth. It doesn't change any other elements of the array. It just gets rid of the last element. Technically you only need these two, but just for convenience, it gives you the rest of them. So pop, what does it do? Or what was your question, David? No. No. Correct. And it will also return that value. So shift will return whatever you got rid of. That's also kind of a cool thing. And same thing with pop. So what is the what adds to the start of the array and shifts everything over? I hate this one, by the way. This is the worst named one. Don't look it up, Cedar. Freaking cheater. Cedar the cheater. Got it. All right. It's unshift. Whoops. I'm not trying to save. Unshift. Whoops. Unshift. It is objectively the worst named. I absolutely hate it. So you pass in something into unshift. It moves all the objects over, or all the components over, all the indexes over 1, and it adds that to the beginning of the array. Okay. Technically, you only need these two, or those two. You only need like one of both, for you to have like full capability, but they just add these out of convenience. So, does that make sense in terms of shift versus unshift, pop, push, that kind of stuff? So, what does... What? So you're describing a tuple. In TypeScript, there are tuples which you can't actually push or pop from, and have like very specific types only inside of it. So JavaScript doesn't have that functionality, but TypeScript does, and that's what you're describing. And it's actually pretty cool and very useful at times. So I actually appreciate that you brought that up. Cool. Meow, meow, meow. Shut up, cat. God. Right. Yeah. So those are just 4 different what are called array methods. So push, pop, shift, and unshift. Let's just go through them really quickly. Popcorn round. What does push do? Installs it, or it adds it to the end. Okay, what does shift do? Yeah. No, it does not. There you go. Removes it from the beginning and shifts all the numbers, all of the indexes up 1 or down 1. Yeah. What does pop do? Don't look it up, Tristan. Don't be like Seer. Here, I'll show you. So we're looking at this one. What does this one do? It removes the last element, so it subtracts it from the end. So it just takes off the last element. Both of these also return the element that you just removed. That's also a useful thing. And then unshift does what? Bueller? Although you are all too young to get that. And if you get that, I'm disappointed in you. Yes, it adds to... I heard he said adds, but I don't know if he said beginning or end. Adds to the beginning, correct. So you can add elements to the beginning or the end using push or unshift. And what's also interesting is you can add multiple elements with it. And so you just say push D, E, F. It'll add all of those elements. Same thing with unshift. It'll unshift starting with D, E, then F. I think. Maybe I'll start with F, E, D. I don't remember. But I don't really do unshift multiple elements. I really just use push multiple elements. Mostly what I do is first in, first out stacks. If I kind of think about it as stacks. Anyway, so that's a thing. I just barely touched on it. We don't have to really do it very much. So, array 3. Oh, yeah. So, array2, when you initialize it, you use these brackets instead of braces. So instead of curly brackets, or also called braces, you use just straight brackets, which are also used to index any type of object. But the problem is with indexing and like array, you can't do R3, whoops, not in there, R3.0. You can't actually do that because JavaScript thinks that's a number. So you actually are required to do this thing. And you can actually pass in 0 or string 0. Make sense? Just due to type coercion. Freaking JavaScript and its type coercion. Anyway, so that's how you index the array. Now, if you initialize it as an object, you can do R3 equals all of those things, and it does the exact same thing as this, except it doesn't give you the prototype. It doesn't give you the array methods that an object would give you. So, or that an array would give you. So if you do B, R3, or 4, it does actually work because this is, this is giving B. So this is actually indexing right there. Same thing as this would be indexing equivalent right here. But the problem is it doesn't give you push. That doesn't actually work because push does not exist on this prototype. Does that make sense? So I keep using the word prototype. What does that mean? Cedar? Cedar, I'm gonna mute you, and I'm kicking you from this. Did he define it? Oh, there it is. Okay. Come on, Nate. I don't think they've done much database SQL stuff. Oh, sorry, SQL stuff yet. Squeal? Right. And what it can do. So, like these methods only exist because R3 has the prototype that has those methods, right? Or I guess it doesn't, not in this instance. But in this instance, it does. That was actually a terrible example because it did not exist. But R3 would have the prototype like R3 to string. That would exist, but then you wouldn't really pass in a thing. That would just return the string version of what you're doing. Okay? So, yeah, Cedar, you have a question. No, it will, I think he just lost internet connection, but I'm going to answer it for him. He's asking, will it throw an out-of-bounds error? What, the exact exception that it will throw is it will say, it'll basically treat this, when you have an object and you have a key that is not defined, for example, if I go to object, and I go to key 3 and I do key 4, undefined, basically, if I didn't do this, it would be, it would return undefined, right? And so, it's basically doing this, whoops, where are you? There you are. Doing this is the same thing as doing undefined, and then trying to call that as a function. And so, it will say, push is not a function, because it's actually undefined. That's the exception that it will throw. Does that make sense? Did you lose internet connection? Is that what happened or something? That's a terrible fast food restaurant. Anyway, that's a hot topic. I'm gonna get roasted in the comments section of this. Basically, you can only use methods that are a part of the prototype. Same thing with getters, which length is a getter of an array. And so basically a getter is a function that is run that you don't pass in anything, and you have to actually put those in, but it's not actually a key that is established. That's not like part of the it's a part of the prototype. It's not actually a part of like the components of your class. We'll get into that once we start initializing classes. Basically, oh, we have push, pop, all of that stuff. I am way ahead of myself. All right, let's go into the date. Everyone understand arrays? Thumbs up. Cool. So, now let's go into the date object. So the date object is a it's basically an object inherent that is used by JavaScript, or that is created by JavaScript for us to manage date in a very easy format, or just to manage time. So anyone know how time, what 0 is in terms of JavaScript? What is 0, or what time is 0? What time is the first or the 0th time? I don't know exactly how to ask that question, but what is it? What time is it? What day is it? It is the second one. So it is midnight, January 1st. It's UTC, I'm pretty sure. Or I don't remember the exact time zone. Midnight, January 1st, 1970. And so the date object, in order to initialize it, you can say new date, which will create a date at that current moment when that was initialized, right? And it's to the millisecond, right? And so it doesn't have as much accuracy as like more compiled languages like Java, C, etc. And so JavaScript is only accurate to the millisecond. And so new date, well, that's not entirely true. You also have performance.now, but that's a different thing. That is whatever, does not matter in the slightest. So when new date is initialized, you have access to a bunch of different methods, and you can read up on them if you hover over this, or if I go to the MDN, see if I can, or just go to the MDN. Date class, MDN. Yay. You can read up on all of this and see like how it all works. It's important to understand like how all of the small components work, and especially in terms of like how month works, how like day of week works, that kind of thing, because it changes between index at 0 and index at 1, because JavaScript sucks. Months are initialized at 0, so the month 0 is January, but the day 1 is the first day of January, and not 0, which is confusing. And then you have days of week. What day of the week is 3? Let me think about that for a second. Wait, 0, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It is Wednesday. No, it's Tuesday. No, it's Wednesday. It is Wednesday. So, yeah. So it starts at 0, which is Sunday, and then indexes off of there. So it's basically designed for you to make an array of months, and you just index the whatever get day is off of the month. So it's a pretty like easy to think about once you create like the array. So say const weekdays equals Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And so now you can say weekdays date got really, GitHub Copilot knows that it's Monday. That is crazy. Okay, that's interesting. So that kind of scares me. So anyway, get day returns something that is used to like index an array. Okay, it also returns several things like get hours, which is the starting at 0 to 23. How many hours? Okay, the day it is, and that also get hours is not based on time zone. It is based on whatever the time zone date, the like January 1st, 1970 is initialized. However, if you say dot like to locale string, it will or different to strings or different to locale string, different to locale date string, and you can read up on it. Certain ones will use your current time zone as so it's readable for you. Okay, and it will return a string for you. So this is a class. Yay. Another thing to note is date.getTime or date.now. Sorry. Date.now is a static method of date. It is not a part of the prototype. That's what static means. It is not a part of a prototype. So if I say now that I have that date, if I say date.now, this will not work. This will throw an error because now is not, this is not a method on there. Okay. This is a static method that is just organized into the date class. So date.now returns the time in milliseconds since January 1st, 1970, midnight. Okay, that just returns that. So if you go to here and say date.now, you'll see 1687 blah 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 blah. Okay, and now I can copy that number and say const d equals new date, and then paste that number. And now d is that date object. And what's really cool is you can like add and subtract date objects. So if I say date object minus date object, it'll return milliseconds between those two date objects, which is awesome and very useful. You don't have to do date.getTime minus date.get. That's actually very difficult to say. You understand what I'm saying. You can do like basic arithmetic with date objects. That's inherent to JavaScript. All right. So there are a couple things that we can do with it. We are nearing the end of the class, so we can end at the date object. So this is kind of an interesting project. Nate made a thing. Yeah, so I made this one, which is basically just a clock that logs using set interval, logs the time in a readable format. And then there's also another one that actually, instead of like a digital clock, it's an analog clock in the command line. So if you want to, you can do that. I'm going to show you what the result is. CD, and it is 3, node 6. So this is Nate's version. I'm going to zoom in. Using console.log, he made this. And you can do that if you want. The easier one is, instead of 6, I'll do 7. All that does is it just logs the time, which is boring. So, Nate's is, I think it just uses the second hand and goes around in a square and tries to use the fact that you can use console.clear and console.log to and various characters that kind of look like they're at angles and stuff like that to generate your clock. It is it's a bit much. Yeah, you all know what those are? Back then, we had to rotate our phone in order to call someone. Anyway, I've had to 1999. I've used them. Yeah. Back when I was 8 or so, I've used them. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, if you want to do that, you can. If you want to do the easier one, you also can. I recommend you start with the easier one so you get in a sense for the date object. And I made a really complicated solution that like made a custom date thing. And I was trying to do stuff, but then I didn't actually use all of it, and I just did a really basic version of it. And so honestly, you can just like get rid of all of this stuff. You can do that if you want, or you can also do this one, which is a bit much. So, do you have any questions about anything that we have gone over today? Cool. That's a good thing. So it'll be easier for you to understand all of this stuff. Next week we will start. Oh no, next week. Let me just double check. Calendar. Yeah, next week we are not having a meeting because I'm going to be in a band meeting with Meridian High School. So I am not available that week. So we're going to start again in on the 3rd. Cool? Alrighty. So if you have any questions, reach out to anyone through the server, and we are more than willing to help you. We next week we're going to add more to the because we're getting close to what we've actually written. We're going to start adding more and more onto the contents of this curriculum, and so we're not going to fall behind where we are, which would kind of suck. And then we'd just kind of be making it up as we go along, which is what I did the past 2 times I did this. So, you all can head out. I'm going to pull Nate, and we're going to head up to the scouting meeting. Kip, if you want to join, and Jorge, I would appreciate it if you also came along. Thank you all for coming. Don't hesitate to like and subscribe. Alrighty. Take care, everyone. Right, yeah. Okay. Take care. Hey. Just want to let you know we are done. Oh, I'm still recording. Stop streaming. Whoops. All right. So, we are done in the